Welcome back to another conversational pace trail shoe review. We have the New Balance FuelCell Summit Unknown V3. These trail shoe names just continue to get longer and longer, and I don't like it, but I do actually kind of like this shoe. Let's dive into it. I've got my co-host as usual, Finn Melanson. How are you doing, Finn?
Every time I get to record with you, Brett, it's a great day.
Wow. My day's been made. Wait, we're done. We don't even need to talk about the shoe anymore. Although I do think this one actually is worth talking about. So this Summit Unknown V3, I think I'm just going to call it the Summit Unknown for time's sake. It's New Balance's lightweight, fast, nimble shoe in their growing trail lineup. It's kind of exciting to see some new trail models from New Balance coming out later on this year. A little disclaimer before we keep going. These shoes were provided to us by Running Warehouse. We're under no financial obligation to say whether or not we like a product because we want to keep these reviews authentic and beneficial for you. Nobody will get to preview or watch this footage before it gets published to our YouTube channel. Also, I'm not wearing a Running Warehouse sweatshirt because this is a commercial. It's actually just very soft, very comfortable, and I was kind of cold this morning. So, a few stats about the shoe. $129 US dollars. That's might be tied for the cheapest shoe that we've had.
Yeah.
So kudos to New Balance for not letting inflation get the best of them. My pair came out to 10.2 ounces in my size 10. So kind of midweight. We've been doing a lot of shoes that are like right in that 10 to 11 ounce range. Thinner stack height than some of our other shoes that we've done. So 20 millimeters in the forefoot, 30 in the heel. It was actually a little bit difficult to find the stack height number. So I'm pretty sure that stack height is including the insole and the lug height, because there's definitely not 20 millimeters of foam under forefoot, but that leads to a 10 millimeter drop, which runs classic to prior versions of this shoe. This is the third generation of the Summit Unknown. Getting into the materials of the shoe, up top we have a pretty tight weave mesh upper that's got this kind of like wetsuit type squish to the material. It's very interesting. There's a lot of plastic overlay. You could see, all the way around the toe bumper, along the side, and then going into the heel cup. Added strength to the material of the shoe. It's going to help keep that foot locked in. I never got to fully soak these shoes on a run, but I just feel like there's no way that they drain well. That this much plastic overlay right around the bottom, like that's going to hold water in like a bathtub.
That's my one complaint about the shoe, by the way, when we get there.
Okay. Very robust toe cap. You can kick anything with this and your toes will be okay. It is very stiff. The tongue has just a little bit of padding on it, and it's gusseted in a kind of booty style construction. So there's a whole nother layer that wraps around your midfoot to provide, additional structure, additional support. The upper is made with at least 50% recycled content, according to New Balance's website. The midsole is where things get a little spicy. We got New Balance's fuel cell foam. So this is their TPU-based foam that is in their marathon racing shoes. So I guess the question that's up for debate is, does that make this a trail super shoe? It's definitely a little bit denser than some of the versions of fuel cell in the road shoes. Like I've run a ton of miles in the Fuel Cell Rebel, which is a lightweight road shoe. And that foam does feel definitely a little bit softer than this one, but maybe New Balance had a reason for keeping this a little firmer. Moving on to the outsole, we have New Balance's in-house rubber blend. It's called Hydrohesion, and it's actually been around for a long time. It's pretty hard material, but actually provides pretty solid grip. I say like the rubber compound provides grip. We'll dive into the actual lug pattern and shape a little bit later on, but there's also a plastic rock plate in between the midsole and the outsole, which, increases that rock protection, helps keep the shoe together a little bit better. Finn, what kind of running did you get in this shoe?
Brett, I put about 137 miles on this shoe. I went well beyond our standard 100-mile barrier because I genuinely loved it so much. About 100 miles were on snow-covered roads in Salt Lake City, as well as on the Bonneville Shoreline Trail here in town, which average 8 to 10% grade up and downs. Also did about 40 miles on St. George in Moab area, dry trails and Jeep roads. You talked earlier about some potential drainage issues with the shoe. I did get to test this shoe in the snow and also in the rain and large puddle type scenarios, and definitely put it to the test. So a lot of different conditions, a lot of variability, and haven't always had that experience with other shoes. So this, I felt like I put this through just about everything I possibly could in a given season.
Nice. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess being in Utah, it's pretty cool. You can, run on snow and ice one day and then be out in the desert when it's 70 degrees the next. I got in 107, so just barely cracked that century barrier as my running's finally starting to ramp up again. But I did get to take this on a couple longer runs. I did get to take it through mud, snow, single track dirt road, a little bit of paved road, just because I wanted to see how it performed as, kind of like a door to trail shoe. Where else did I, mostly all in Southern Oregon, but
okay.
Yeah, it was fun. Moving on to the fit. How was the length of this shoe for you?
Length was perfect, true to size. I'm a size 12. This shoe's a size 12, and it was true to size. Perfect fit.
Yeah. Same for me. I'm a 10. This was a 10. That was great. I would get a 10 again. What did you think of kind of like the width and how it, wrapped around your foot?
To me, just looking at this shoe, it looks like it's going to be a narrower fit. I actually felt like I had a fairly wide toe box, and I am somebody who enjoys what companies like Ultra and Topo have to offer with that intentionally wider toe box. I felt like I pretty much got that here. The shape of the shoe kind of belied what actually was available up in the forefoot. So fit great for me.
Yeah. I thought it was going to be pretty narrow too, because I've worn previous versions of the shoe and they were narrower. This one did get a little bit wider. It's definitely not like, like Ultra and Topo are definitely going to be the most squared off, but you could see on the shoe, like it started to buckle inward just a little bit, as that happens pretty commonly with my slightly narrower foot. Not enough to the point where it, caused any irritation or blistering, but surprisingly a little bit wider than I thought. But where I did find there to be an interesting amount of room was on the medial or the inside of the arch, this huge plastic overlay. I feel like I wish it wasn't there because the material didn't really get to be soft and pliable and wrap around my arch. It did get better after about 50 miles, but for the first, 50 miles of running, it felt like there was just like this big bubble or pocket of air where I wish there was shoe.
Yeah, for me, the only issue I really experienced either in the midsole or even closer up to the forefoot is just a lot of like collapsing of this material here, sort of halfway between the toe box and the midsole of the shoe. And I felt like in maybe even 10 miles, this was going to start to rip apart, around the 150 mile mark. So that was my big concern.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting material. I mean, I thought that the plastic was going to start to like peel away from the actual mesh because of how kind of starchy the mesh was, but none of that has happened. And, I had all these kind of preconceived notions of maybe this shoe will, cause a hole, like blow out or have a hole, but there hasn't been any of that yet. So I have no reason to believe that the upper is actually going to have any durability issues. Finn, what did you think about kind of the feel and the ride of this shoe?
And I'm sure we'll get to this a little bit later in the episode. This felt like an incredibly responsive feel. Like I would feel compelled to do workouts in the shoe and maybe anything below 50K, I felt like my foot was very, very connected and in tune with the ground below me. Like I would feel, stepping on particularly sharp rocks or just changes in terrain. I really felt my environment with this shoe. How about you?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the fuel cell foam definitely adds for a little bit of squish, but I feel like New Balance like pretty purposely didn't add too much of it because that would totally ruin the fast feel and kind of the magic of the shoe. So yeah, I also kind of found myself gravitating towards running faster, doing those quicker workouts where I want something that's a little bit closer to the ground. More nimble feeling, and cushioning wasn't that big of a deal. One thing that like I thought that kept coming back to me every time I wore these shoes was like, dude, this is the ultimate budget S-Lab shoe. Like this is $130. Salomon S Lab, Pulsar, used to be the Sense, were $170, $180, and this feels just like it. What do you think?
That's a great reference.
Yeah.
I think that you nailed the description there.
Yeah. So that was, what was going through my mind. And this shoe was a ton of fun to put on.
Let me add.
Yeah.
It's not only a sense, it's a sense that it's a Salomon shoe that somebody like myself with a wider forefoot can actually fit into and enjoy the fruits of.
You just enjoy the fruits.
The fruits of the labor of people trying to put a performance shoe together.
Yep. Yeah. This shoe is bananas.
I can say that again if you want. I can say that.
No, I'm keeping that. We're keeping all of this in there. I did notice that
here on conversational pace.
That's the whole point. We're keeping it conversational. I did notice that after about 50 miles, my foot started to create a pretty good size, like indentation of my foot into the shoe. And that's due to this fuel cell foam being pretty soft. And, it's just really, it's not that durable of a foam. If you want it to be durable, you have to add a lot of it. And if you add a lot of it to the shoe becomes, much less fun. So I can tell, I don't think I'm going to get that many miles out of this shoe. I mean, 50 miles in, I already got to see some creasing. I have a little over 100, and you can see where it's starting to crease and just break down. So I imagine that the quality of the cushioning will start to go down after, as soon as, 200 or 250 miles. But, that's kind of okay to me.
See, you mentioned the phrase super shoe earlier, which might cause this video to go viral. Are you saying that similar to the consequences of equivalent super shoes in the road world, this thing has a limited shelf life?
I mean, I definitely don't think it's like your mileage hog. That's for sure. A lot of the super shoes on the road are actually going to last a lot longer than this, just because those road super shoes are such high stack foams. And, I think that's going to be one of the biggest differences between, like a super trail shoe, which I still really don't think exists, and what is defined as a super shoe on the roads. I don't think it's just going to be a matter of like taking a Vaporfly and putting a trail outsole on it, but maybe we should do an entire episode on what might make a trail super shoe.
And also in 2023 or later on down the line, will the trail world be the place where phrases like super shoe and mileage hog become one? They make sense combined together, describing a shoe.
We shall see. Maybe that's what 2023 will be for. Moving on to the outsole, durability wise, it seems fine. The lugs are pretty far apart, which is great for shedding mud and really getting into the sloppier conditions. So the few road runs I did, I started to, you can already see some wear on the middle lugs right under the ball of my foot, which makes sense. There's just not that much surface area touching the ground. One problem I did have though in the shoe was on some muddier days, all the lugs are facing a direction that does not give way to a lot of lateral grip. So, when you need the shoe to grip this way, like when you're taking a hard turn on single track, I slid out multiple times on the shoe because all the lugs are going this way. And like even in the heel, it's even worse. Right. They're all in a straight line. If you had just twisted a few of these lugs, that would have increased the grip so much. And on muddy trails, I can't really trust the shoe when I'm going fast because of the lug pattern.
I was going to ask you about that. What do you think the rationale was for keeping everything in the same direction? Do you think it was to shed? They were just so focused on shedding whatever terrain you're picking up, whatever material like mud and stuff. Like, what's your thought process there?
I imagine it's probably a bit of not holding on to mud and probably not enough real world testing. I think that's what a lot of it comes down to. I mean, how many professional athletes does New Balance have in the trail world? Like, how much R&D is really going into this shoe? So if I had to take an educated guess, I would think that is probably just more of a design oversight than anything.
Interesting.
So moving on to like, what did New Balance design the shoe for, and does it hold true? I thought it was kind of funny. So I went to New Balance's website, and all that they have on their site is made for fearless runners brave enough to take on the off-road terrain.
That sounds like the marketing of a brand that has most of their feet in the road running world.
Yeah, which is a bummer because New Balance dominated trail in
a decade ago.
2010. Yeah, a decade ago. They, when Born to Run came out, and well, I guess it was a little bit easier to make the trendy shoes because there wasn't too much to them. New Balance was dominating that though, and it's a bummer that they're not continuing to try and dominate the trail market. They do have some very interesting shoes coming out though later on this summer that I am very much hoping that we get to run in. So maybe they're taking a turn for the better. But what I liked a little bit better was Running Warehouse's kind of their pitch for the shoe. It said fast and nimble shoe for technical terrain and wet conditions. Wet conditions, I'm like, maybe. Like on wet rock, it actually grips really well. Mud, I didn't love it too much. Technical terrain, yes, but I would add just fast trail running in pretty much every condition, like non-technical and dry conditions. I would wear this. Like Finn, would you race in this shoe?
If I was an elite athlete in the sub ultra world, I would, and I was sponsored by New Balance, I would take this to the Golden Trail World Series. I would race Mammoth Trail Fest in this shoe. I would race the Pikes Peak Ascent in this shoe. I would race Flagstaff Sky Peaks in this shoe. That's where I'm going.
Yeah. I mean, I think pretty much anything like 50K and down, I would race this shoe. Like I would race, my 50K PR is at the Way Too Cool 50K over in Auburn. And I wore the first version of this shoe.
Wow.
And it was great. I wouldn't hesitate to throw this on for something like a Broken Arrow 50K. I think I could do it. I think that this shoe could handle that amount of time on feet, or I guess it's more I could handle the shoe for that amount of time, but that would be really pushing it. But I would love it in that half marathon to marathon, technical, type race course where you need to be able to feel the ground, but also still get a little bit of rock protection with this rock plate.
Yep. So, I think I would peak out at a trail 50K in this. I would not go much more than 5 or 6 hours time on feet in this shoe.
No, unless you like just that kind of classic old school trail shoe type vibe, because it's a 10 millimeter drop, not very thick, not too many shoes like that anymore. Back in the day, people used to race 100 milers all the time in this shoe. So if that's what you're looking for, this could actually fill that void. Moving on to value, $130. What do you think, Finn?
This is priced at a level that anybody that's interested in the trail scene can come purchase and enjoy. I think that this is the shoe of the people. We've had a lot of shoes on this show, upwards of $200, and this is more in touch with reality. New Balance is actively fighting this inflationary environment. They're making this thing available, and I love it. This is great value.
I agree. And it's not only that it's $130, which is like upwards of $100+ cheaper than the most expensive shoes on the market. You get a decent outsole. You get a rock plate. You get super foam. You get this bulletproof wetsuit upper. The only thing that I wish the shoe didn't have were such stretchy laces. For something with a mesh upper that doesn't have much stretch to it, and you were going for precision, why are we using stretchy laces? That is not precise. So I wish that it just came with some non-stretch laces, I think that would actually make the fit of the shoe even better. But, that's easy to swap out.
I will say one more thing. If this shoe does conk out at about 250 miles, like you've said, a lot of super shoes tend to do, I might actually downgrade my value, because if I'm paying $130 for a shoe to last 250 miles, that changes the equation a bit.
But if you're only wearing it on workout days, then you're going to get quite a few workouts out of it.
True. Great point.
That's that special day sort of shoe, which, on the road side of things, if you want that, you're paying $200 minimum. Any final parting thoughts for this one, Finn?
You can take this out if you want, but I brought this dirty New Balance shoe to the recording today, and I don't know if you remember those pickup truck commercials back in the day where the car will drive through all sorts of inclement weather just to demonstrate how tough it is, through potholes, up steep passes, all that jazz. And, they're like, this is a Ford Super Duty, 8-time JD Power Trail Associates Award. I wanted to bring this mud-splattered New Balance to the recording to really communicate the lengths that I brought this through in the winter conditions here in Salt Lake City and how well it held up. I love this shoe almost as much as I love the Topo we had earlier on, and the Adidas as well. So if there was a JD Power Associates Award for this shoe, I would give it.
We did donuts in the Arctic tundra for 9 hours. Yeah, you can take the shoe a lot of places, and I think that makes it very fun. If you do want to try these shoes out and your local run specialty shop does not have them, feel free to use our link below to get the New Balance FuelCell Summit Unknown V3 from our friends over at Running Warehouse. It would support the channel. We appreciate it. Give us a like, subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.
P.S. I do intend to bring this shoe over 250 miles. So if at a later date we're reviewing shoes that we've done in the past, I'm happy to provide an update on how well this thing held up in the later stages of its life.